Hello, I'm going to be showing you how to submit your Jam game using the new Jam Entry Packager. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need a Jam game. I have chosen Wambulance. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Build. We're going to do Clean first. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly why we do this. I've never had a problem not doing it, but it's just good practice to do it. Once you have cleaned it, you're going to hit create executable. You're going to do package as zip. You're going to put it in a place where you can easily get to it. I'm going to put it on my desktop. It's going to compile and make the zip folder. It has now successfully built our game. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our desktop. Once we're on our desktop, we're going to find the zip of our game that we have exported. We are going to unzip it. Extract to Wambulance. Now that it's in its own folder, we're going to go back to the Jam Entry Packager. If it does not open, you may need to install .NET 5.0. Do not disregard this. You're not building anything with it. Do not accidentally download the SDK. You want to come over here. If you're you can download it for desktop on Windows. For most people, you're just going to come right here to desktop and you're going to select x64, not ARM, X. All right. Once you have downloaded and installed that, you should now be able to open the packager. If you don't, there's probably other issues with your computer besides just not having the required things. Now that you have opened it somehow, we're going to do Open Entry Directory. Or you can do Open Zip Archive. I've done it this way just because it's more simple. We're going to go to Wambulance. We're going to select the folder. You'll be greeted by this screen. This will tell you what file you're modifying. It will give you a list preview. This is what shows up on the side view when everyone's looking through submissions. Then it will show you the main entry when someone has clicked on your submission. You have 3 buttons here. You have Play, README, and Directory. README may be grayed out depending on if you have one or not, or maybe has not found it. Directory will just open up the file we're in right now. README will open the README if you have one. And Play Game will open the game. Now that we've done that, this is where we edit our information. So we can edit the title, such as Big Billy's Wild Adventure. Or we can have a short title called Crazy Sunday. Our team name is Pixelated Hammered Raccoon. And our authors are Avinsky. Press the green button to add more. You can edit it here or you can edit it here. We have Kenneth Burkhart, and then we have Pat Ferguson, Pixel Team, and Firehammer Games. We also have the ability to add the community ID and the role. So I am the programmer, Ken is the music master, and Pat is Stinky. You can add your community ID. Thankfully, I have mine right here. Wow, it's 28930. You can add this right here. I'm not exactly sure why we need this information. I have not found it yet, but that's just because it's me. Ask Alice. Next thing we go to, this is our little editing of information. So here we have a Windows executable. If you only have one, I do not think it's necessary to have a name, but I would leave this just as is. If you have multiple, like you have it on Windows and Opera GX, you can add both of those. You go right here to type and you select web page or GX games page. We're going to use Starship Elemental as an example for this. So we have a Windows executable. We can add a description of super awesome game. And then it should automatically find your exe file. You can also search for it in case it hasn't. You can also do launch to make sure it's the right one. Back to the Opera games, we can go Opera games. Why do we not have monetization yet? Select GX Games. Thankfully, I have submitted Starship to GX Games. We're going to copy the link, the public link or the private link, whichever you prefer. Go to the enter location and you do that. If you select launch and have Opera installed, it will automatically launch Opera to the game. No, go away. Stop. Don't pin yourself to the tab. Okay, whatever. Next, we have the README. The README is important. If it does not automatically find it because you have some file extension, you can do search. And hopefully it's in the place where you have the game and everything else that we've been going through. You can also open it to make sure it's the right one. If you have important information, you need to do is required. What this does is in the preview, it will make README and play switch places, so it shows that README is important. In our case, we do not need it. It's fine. You can also have an afterword. This is not required. It is optional. README is also optional, but that's depending on your game and your certain standards. Then we have thumbnails. Thumbnails are used for the gameplay browser, whatever we called it. I'm going to get yelled at. We have a main one and a small one. The main one is a recommended size of 240 by 240. A small one is a recommended size of 96 by 96. I'm going to use some placeholder ones I've made. So I'm going to use the 241 for the main. And you see it's like this. By default, it'll just scale down to 241 to 96 by 96. And we can also set our own custom one if we go back to desktop and do 96. Look, now we have a small one. This is the one that shows up in the list. This is the one that shows up next to your game when someone clicks on it. Clear and valid removes data of launchers, text files, and thumbnails that do not point to valid files. Rediscover files will automatically search through the folder that you have selected to try and find these for you. And then it brings us to the checklist. On the left side, we have entry status. Entry has a title defined. Entry has authors defined. Entry has launchers defined. Entry has a required README file. No afterword file is given. This is optional. Entry has both big and small thumbnails. This is also optional. To be able to export your package, you must click through the reminders. All code and assets in the game were made either by the team, used with permission, or according to the license. Any code or assets made before the jam and or not made by the team was properly cited in the README file or in the game itself. All necessary controls and instructions are in the game itself or in a README file. Mark README as required if no in-game instructions are available. You need to check this even if you have one or not. No music assets were accidentally left on uncompressed, not stream setting, making the game files unnecessarily large. Short sound effects are fine uncompressed. This is also optional, but if you do not do this, I am personally going to be upset with you. Once you have checked through all of these, you can now export entry package. You will click this button and it will ask you where you want it to be exported to. Do not change this name. I will be extremely upset with you. We then hit save. We now have a entry zip. You can submit this to the GMC Jam. You do not need to unzip this. You can put this on itch. It also works as a submission. If we look inside, it has all of the information it needs for the jam. I super recommend you get to know this tool and use it for every time you want to submit a jam. It's super easy to use. It's very simple. You now have this guide to use. I hope you have found it simple to use because of this guide. Thank you and happy jamming.